for braving the elements this evening. For those of y'all that don't know me, I'm Jimmy Lentz. I hold the honor very proudly and honorably of Director of Cabarrus County EMS, and we certainly appreciate again y'all coming out. This is the seventh annual Hearts and Heroes event, and this event we at Cabarrus EMS and the emergency response sector of Cabarrus County in general have become very proud of, because it's a neat opportunity to reunite with some folks, as we'll get into a little bit more in depth shortly. I would like to take this opportunity to thank some key folks that make this event possible. One being the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners and Cabarrus County Management. I think County Manager Mike Downs is in attendance. They have always been just tremendously supportive of EMS in general and the emergency response system in Cabarrus County. So thank them. Also, the great medical direction provided to Cabarrus County EMS, our EMS Medical Director, Dr. Catherine Waggy. And the administrative management and many other departments that we're going to talk about tonight from Atrium Health Cabarrus. They provided the fantastic heavy hors d'oeuvres and food we've all enjoyed for the last 30 minutes, and without them we couldn't make this event possible. So I'll go on to say this event gives the infrequent opportunity for medical caregivers to be reunited with the patients they have previously cared for during a critical medical event. The chain of medical care starts when someone recognizes a medical emergency and initiates 911. In many cases, this is a family member, a loved one of the individual experiencing the crisis, so it kind of goes haywire from the get-go. That call is put into 911, and there's a very compassionate, skilled 911 communicator on the other end to initiate everything we're going to hear tonight in motion. They, as I said, answer the phone with compassion and start immediately giving emergency medical advice through the emergency medical dispatch system. And that's just, without that, we couldn't go any further. It is followed by first responders, both paid and volunteer, depending on where you're located in the county. And I would put our first responders against any in the country. We're very blessed to have the organization of first responders that we have. They get on the scene, initiate treatment, followed up by the EMS, Cabarrus County EMS, which is the paramedic level care. It's the highest pre-hospital care offered anywhere in the world. And again, I'm slightly partial, but we've got some fantastic medics with us, and I'm certainly proud to be associated with them. This rolls into and continues to alerting Atrium Health Cabarrus, which starts a whole nother team preparing to receive the patient that we're going to be bringing them. And that wheel is just, it mushrooms. It starts small with the ER and then continues for days of treatment through ACCU, ICCU, and many other places. And that care, again, is second to none. And we are very fortunate in this area to have this entire system supporting us in a time of need. With that, bottom line, to make it short and sweet, because obviously we're trying to respect the weather and get you guys out of here, I'd just like to say thank you to, one, the family and friends, neighbors that have seen some of these folks and stepped in to start the treatment, and then the whole team that I and we are fortunate to be associated with and get to be here tonight to recognize. So with that, everybody involved, thank you. Now I would like to take the opportunity to introduce Mr. Alan Thompson. Alan is a retired Cabarrus County EMS Director. I was fortunate to function as his Assistant Director for 5 years. We both started at Cabarrus County on January 4th, 1990. I'm still here and he's gone. I really can't explain that, but so be it. Alan is currently holding the role of Program Chair for the Emergency Medical Science and Emergency Management Department at Roy and Cabarrus Community College, and is very involved with turning out some fantastic EMS, EMT, paramedic candidates that us as employers are very appreciative to have, and very appreciative to have him in that role. So Alan.
It is truly an honor to be here tonight, and what a blessing it is to see everyone gathered and to see how a system, when it comes together, how it can make such a big difference in the lives of so many people. Every person here has been touched by this team that Director Lentz has described, and will continue to be touched in days going forward. So as we prepare for this event tonight, I would invite you to join me in a word of prayer. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we just thank you. Tonight we come here with so many different things on our minds. We come here in the middle of this bad weather, but we come here tonight in celebration. We celebrate life. We celebrate lives that have been changed because of compassionate and competent care. We celebrate life that is celebrated as a second chance and a third chance. And we celebrate lives that have been committed to making a difference in the lives of their fellow human beings. So, Lord, tonight we thank you for all those who have made it their passion to serve their neighbor by being healthcare providers, by being first responders, firefighters, EMS, law enforcement, 911 telecommunicators, hospital professionals, and other allied healthcare professionals. We thank you for those who have made that their life calling. And we thank you tonight for family members and community who have taken it upon themselves to learn life-saving skills of CPR and knowing when to call 911 and knowing how to start that care. And Lord, tonight we thank you for the confidence that you have placed in the hearts of those that have stepped up and made a difference and offered their services. And tonight we thank you for survivors that are gathered here along with their families and the support that they showed. Because, Lord, that is such a reaffirmation, such an affirmation of what this healthcare community needs to see, knowing that this community makes a difference. Now, Lord, we pray that you would bless our time together, that we would feel a spirit in this room tonight that reminds us that life is too important to waste. And now, Lord, we pray this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. I'm Justin Brines, the Assistant Director with Cabarrus County EMS, and it is a pleasure and an honor to stand before you this evening. The most beautiful thing about Hearts and Heroes is that it simplifies one of the most basic human needs, and that is the need of love. Everyone has a heart, and everyone can be a hero. Tonight we are surrounded by a room full of heroes and the hearts that still beat because of several acts of love. Tonight we celebrate moments in which husbands, wives, parents, colleagues, passerby, medical staff, and first responders walked into a moment and simply impacted a life. To the survivors that are here tonight, thank you. We spent some time this morning as a leadership team discussing our why, and just to put it simply, you're our why. You're the reason we exist. You're the reason that we get out of bed every morning and come do the work that we do. And we thank you for being here tonight and sharing your life with us. We could not do what we do without you. This system would not exist without patients who support us. Obviously, we don't want people to need 911, but when they do and they're willing to come back and share their story, we thank you so much for being here tonight. To the families in this room who support the caregivers, thank you. I can't say enough. I've done this work for quite a few years, and now I have a wife and I have children, and it's even more evident on what it takes to support a caregiver. So thank you to the families in the room who support everybody to make this possible. And I will say that quality cardiac care does not exist in a vacuum. Actually, all of pre-hospital care, but we're here tonight to celebrate CPR survivors, but it does not exist in a vacuum. Jimmy did a great job describing what happens from the moment you call 911 until the moment that you walk out of the hospital and potentially go to rehab or back to your regular life. And for the survivors in the room, you know that story very well, more than you probably did a year ago. So we would be remiss tonight if we did not recognize the allied agencies who help us do what we do. And so we would like tonight to call the agency leaders up from several different agencies. Some of these are first responders in the county, others are hospital staff, and recognize you and have you stay up front for a photograph. So when we call your name, if you'll come up, we have a certificate for you, and then we'll have you stand up front for a picture. I'll start with Jimmy Lentz, Director of Cabarrus County EMS. Steve Langer with Cabarrus County Emergency Management, the Fire Marshal's Office. Jerry Taylor with Mount Pleasant Fire Department. Chief with Mount Pleasant Fire Department. Sorry, I left the title off. Jim Preddy, Chief of Coldwater Fire Department. Randy Dozier, Chief with Allen Fire Department. Byron Blackwelder, Chief of the Georgeville Fire Department. Jake Williams, Chief of Concord Fire Department. Gary Gasick, Chief of Concord Police Department, and Van Shaw, Sheriff of Cabarrus County Sheriff's Office. He's also representing the telecommunicators who fall under his direction, who will be recognized in various roles tonight. Moving on to some folks from the hospital. On behalf of administration with Atrium Health Cabarrus, Keith Cook. Atrium Health Cabarrus Emergency Department, Paula Evans, Nurse Manager. And Ms. Rhonda Wright is here tonight. She's going to accept for cardiac services as well as intensive care units at Atrium Health Cabarrus. So Rhonda Wright, she's the an Assistant Vice President of Patient Services. Thank you to everybody who these folks represent, because we couldn't do our job without you, and the middle of this room wouldn't be here tonight without you. So thank you all very much. County EMS began a partnership with Zoll Medical. And for those of you that don't know, they manufacture a lot of medical equipment, but primarily what we utilize are heart monitors on our ambulance. So the heart monitors that were used to revive you, both tracings of EKG, 12 leads, as well as defibrillation, cardioversion. We also use a product of theirs called Auto Pulse, which helps do CPR on a patient without actually having to use our hands and freeing up things so that we can do that more effectively. And we're very glad to have their equipment on our trucks. And it is my pleasure tonight to introduce Grant Clefcorn, who is a territory manager with Zoll, and he has the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker tonight. Thank you, Grant.
Thanks, sir. So, on behalf of Zoll, we just want to say thank you for letting us be a small part of celebrating your success here. We're really just a small part of this. And to help you guys celebrate, we've put together clinical SAVE certificates for each of the providers who are involved in the SAVEs. And what we really hope these are ways for you guys to kind of remember the events that you were a part of and the people who not only you saved, but their families, their friends, and their coworkers, basically everyone else who would have been impacted. And so it's just a little way for you guys to kind of remember the event that you guys were part of. And hopefully you guys hang on your wall in your homes or in your stations, and that wall just gets crowded over the years. So I get to introduce Jim Dolan. Jim Dolan is a coworker of mine, as well as a friend, and he does what I do for the Northeast. He's from New Jersey, so don't hold that against him. But he's dedicated his life to improving outcomes from cardiac arrest, and he's got a unique experience as well as outlook on cardiac arrest. So Jim, why don't you come on up here?
Evening, everyone. You guys, can you hear me? Okay, cool. I'm Jim Dolan. I am with Zoll Medical, as Grant said. I also have a story to share with you guys tonight. But first, I wanted to thank Kara. I wanted to thank Cabarrus County, Grant, my other Zoll colleagues who are here with me tonight, who invited me to share this special event with you guys here tonight. It's really special to be in a room with so many different heroes, survivors, families, friends, that are all here for one goal and one reason, and to be here tonight to celebrate life and survival, and you know, these heroes who are all around the room is really truly unique. I do want to share that as territory managers and as Zoll folks, we get to spend a lot of time with departments all around the country and different areas of the country, and some even around the world. But there's truly a difference in departments like you guys here this evening that really get together and have a culture like this that celebrate these wins and these big survival stories. It's truly a special place. And what I've learned about you just in the last couple hours that I've been here, it's truly unique. So congratulations to all of you guys for putting this together and for taking the time out of your busy schedules and your family life to come out and celebrate this together. That's awesome. So, yeah, please give yourselves a round of applause, because that is awesome. Okay. So I will start off as well. I'll apologize. I did not mean to bring the foul weather with me. I am from New Jersey. I'm a Yankee. I just got on a plane, came down here. Believe it or not, the weather was not that bad when I left Jersey. So I kind of have an excuse. I didn't bring it all with me. So. So it's interesting. This weather that we're kind of experiencing here tonight brings me back to my journey and where my journey began, and what brought me to Zoll and what brought me here in front of all you guys tonight. So I'm going to kind of walk you through that, but it's truly kind of funny how I got off the plane today, and that weather kind of brought me back down memory lane. So it kind of looks like that. That kind of looks familiar, right? Everybody kind of saw this picture when we looked out those windows tonight when you came in on the way in tonight. So yesterday the weather was probably pretty mild for most of you here, right? Decent day out, very similar to the day before where my journey began. It was a mild day, it was cold, it was January in New Jersey, particularly on the Jersey Shore. We always get some nice wind off the ocean, but my day was pretty mild that day too. It was a Tuesday morning. I woke up, I got out of bed, and I started my day just like any other 15-year-old kid would have started his day. Didn't listen to my parents, got to school late, right? Went to school, did what I had to do in school, hung out with my friends. It was as normal could get. When the bell hit at 3 o'clock, me and my football teammates, we walked from our lockers down to the weight room where we worked out in school with the rest of the football team. During that time, we started to hear that there was going to be snow on its way. And just like any other 15-year-old kid, you start to get excited. You start to plan for that snow day, figuring out what you're going to do with all your friends. And that's exactly what we just did. We figured that out, and we decided we would wake up on Wednesday morning and go shovel some snow. That plan worked out great. We went home. We all sat in our windows, texting all night, watching the snow come down. And it was going to be all about going out and just being a couple buddies and shoveling snow. They were my two best friends from growing up. They're my two best friends to this day, so it couldn't have been any more normal. We woke up that next morning, we all met up at my parents' house, again in that same town, and it looked just like this. We grabbed our shovels, we started to go around town, and we started to shovel snow. We went to a couple teachers' houses that we were friendly with. We shoveled one of our coaches' driveways. He came out and made us some hot chocolate. It was a really fun morning. Around 12 noon, we started to make it back around the block in the neighborhood to my parents' house, where we were going to shovel their snow while my dad made us some lunch. So we got back to my parents' house. My father began to make us some sandwiches, and we kind of huddled up before we started shoveling that driveway just to have some water. And I felt like a normal 15-year-old kid. I wasn't winded like I was when I was working out or playing on sports and out on the football field. I didn't have a headache. I didn't feel warm. I didn't feel cold. I was just a kid shoveling snow. So from there on out, we had our water. We talked about shoveling the driveway. We talked about having lunch, and we went out and we started shoveling. About 45 seconds to a minute after having that conversation, Kevin looked behind him. Billy was still up on the other end of the driveway, and I was face down in the snow. He immediately dropped his shovel. He ran towards me. He got the attention of Billy. They came, up close to me. They also thought that I was just joking around. Terrible joke, right? I was pulseless. I was in a full VFib arrest. I began kind of gargling before I became completely unresponsive. Kevin then realized that it was a lot more serious than just joking around. He did go inside. He retrieved my dad, who was inside. He didn't really rush outside because he might have just thought that I had fainted at that time. So by the time he got outside and he kind of noticed the same things and was able to see it for himself, things obviously got a little bit more serious. My stepmother was inside. She initiated the 911 system, right? She called the 911 operator, and that whole entire process that you guys just heard a few minutes ago started to begin, right? After she got on the phone with 911, my dad started chest compressions. He was a lifeguard about 45 years prior. It's a long time ago. The AHA guidelines didn't really exist, right? So all I can tell you is he pushed hard, he pushed fast, and he tried to give some breaths in there, but it wasn't the best day of CPR. But it was something, right? It was anything to save his son. Within about 6 minutes, the police arrived on scene. We live in a small town. There's only a couple police officers on duty at any given time. They could be doing a school detail. They could be doing anything. They were there in about 6 minutes with an AED in their car. When they got on scene, the officer was also a volunteer firefighter in my town. So he was familiar with using an AED and operating an AED. They all had one in their cars. He took the AED, obviously applied it to me, and in one shock, I regained my pulse. After regaining a pulse, EMS got on scene, a volunteer agency called Monmouth Beach EMS. Okay, very small volunteer agency made up of folks in town who don't earn a pension, they don't get paid for a call, they get a cool job shirt, and they like to answer the calls. And that's kind of the department in a nutshell. They showed up, I was transported locally to a hospital in about 3 or 4 miles from my house, where until the weather was able to cooperate a little bit better, about 24 to 48 hours later, I was flown down and taken down to Children's Hospital in Philadelphia. That is almost where my memory started to come back. So I woke up in the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. This is me kind of waking up. I was very confused. I didn't know where I was. All I was told was that in the next 45 minutes to an hour, I was going to be going in to get an ICD. So they had about 45 minutes to try and explain to me why in the world a 15-year-old kid doesn't remember anything since 2 weeks ago, and now I'm going to get carted in to go get implanted defibrillator in my chest. That meant a lot of things. That meant losing football, right, for the rest of my life. That meant losing, contact sports. That meant losing my life, my childhood as I knew it. And I was right at that age where you start to think about what you want to be still when you grow up, right? You're in that awkward high school stage, and everyone you meet does a different job, and you think it's cool. And it was a lot to take in. I had my ICD put in, and then things started to come together after that procedure. I started to, obviously experience some memory lapse, and things needed to be explained to me. I needed to kind of understand why I was there and what had happened, right? And the only thing that mattered to me at that point was where were Kevin and Billy, and and where was my family, and they were all right there with me through that whole process. But it took a while. After getting that ICD implanted, it was a few weeks until I could go home back to New Jersey. I left CHOP and I came home, and I was not supposed to be out. I wasn't supposed to be going to school. I wasn't supposed to really be doing anything. Those were a really tough few weeks. I did have the urge to go out and throw a football on the beach, and yes, I was shocked by my defibrillator. So that was a good experience too. But after that, it took a very long time to figure out, who I was as a person and where I wanted to go with this. That led to a couple things. Well, first it led to high school graduation. It also led to me going to get my EMT and riding with the service that saved my life in Monmouth Beach for the emergency medical services in Monmouth Beach. I went and got my EMT. I also went to get my instructor card to teach CPR. And I kind of fell in love with this whole idea, right? That it wasn't fair that there were so many other people out there that weren't fortunate enough to see that next day, but I was. So there was a reason for me to still be here, and there was a reason to go and do these things so that I could be a part of this, and I could be a part of what you guys get up and do every single day. And it's the most important thing in the world. At that same time, we met a family that had lost their daughter only about months before my cardiac arrest. She was not revived, and she was a cheerleader and collapsed on a track. They had taken her, they actually revived her the first time, but she re-arrested and did not make it. And we were trying to find other families at the time to relate with, to go ahead and kind of figure out, what else we could do, and are we the only people out here that are experiencing this? So we met up with the Zielinski family, and in 2014, Janet's Law passed in New Jersey. So we required that every single school in the state of New Jersey today requires a certain amount of AEDs, whether you're public or private school. You have a written action plan for cardiac arrest and anybody in the school, and that you can't graduate high school today in New Jersey without a valid CPR card. So that was one of our first accomplishments as a family, as a community, and that really started to spark things, and that's when I really started to get more passionate than just getting up and riding on the ambulance. I kind of figured out at that point what I wanted to do and how I wanted to spend the rest of my life, and it was kind of a nice kickstart. A lot of things started blossoming for me at that point, which was nice. That led to a few more years down the road. We started setting up heart screenings for young athletes throughout my community. We screened about 800 hearts over the course of a couple of years. I got a lot more active with the volunteer EMS agency in my town. I became a lieutenant with them. And during that time, that's when Zoll released some new CPR technology into the United States called the Rescue CPR system. We were the first agency in the state of New Jersey and one of the first in the country to adopt this system and bring it into our service and implement it. It was really important to my community that we continued to spread AEDs and spread awareness about cardiac arrest. So it was it was extremely easy to convince people to bring this technology and spend the time and the resources and the money to bring this into our town. About 3 weeks after Zoll came out and trained us on this device, there was a 63-year-old gentleman in Monmouth Beach, Doug Murphy, who went into cardiac arrest at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I had just been getting home from another event that was school related, and I remember the tones going off specifically and reading that code come up on my phone. And it was the first code that we have had since we adopted the Rescue CPR system with Zoll. So people were anxious and eager to use the equipment. So I remember getting to the station and getting on the truck, and we headed out to the call, and Doug Murphy was in full cardiac arrest. And his wife was there, and she was extremely scared. There's probably many people in this room who can relate to that. We spent a lot of time calming down his wife, Lisa, as we worked on Doug with the Rescue CPR system. And in about 22 minutes, we had fully revived Doug with 2 shocks to the defibrillator and several rounds of CPR with the Rescue CPR system. We had revived Doug, and Doug pretty much went down the same exact path that I did. By getting an implantable defibrillator and going through rehab. And they actually hung this story on the hospital wall when you come into the ER now, because we were both transported to the same hospital. So this picture, him and I are on there in the newspaper, which is pretty cool. So now Doug and I still stay in touch every day, so he does not mind me sharing this story with you. We still talk about this story all the time. We drink our decaf coffee, so it's So that was kind of what created this journey for me at Zoll. After saving Doug and building this relationship with him, I was able to build a much stronger relationship with Zoll. Monmouth Beach EMS became testimony that this device in fact works, and it's extremely effective, and it worked very quickly for us, especially in an agency that is not just 2 minutes away on a staffed ambulance at all times. You're talking about a volunteer agency where folks need to go to the station, retrieve an ambulance or apparatus, respond to the scene from there, and you don't have all the other resources such as drugs and everything else available to you until an ALS unit gets on scene. And that day, an ALS unit didn't get on scene until we had already packaged Doug and we were already getting him out of the house. So it was pretty special to us. This picture on the right-hand side was me getting sworn in. That's the past Lieutenant Governor of the state of New Jersey, who was also extremely motivated she lives in our community. She happened to live there during my cardiac arrest and was also extremely important in the process of getting us to get those laws passed with the AEDs and having Janet's Law implemented in the state. So that was in January of 2011. I was 15 years old today. I am 25 years old, and on January 27th, same date, except for it'll be June 27th actually. It will same number, but different months. June 27th, I will be marrying my fiance, Gabrielle. So that's our dog right there. So again, thank you. I hope I didn't go over time. I just again want to congratulate everybody in the room. Thank you for letting me share this opportunity with you here tonight.
This time we would like to begin the recognition of the hearts and the heroes. When you're recognized, please come to the front with your family. January the 16th, 2019. Thomas Little. Mr. Little had the best visit from a cable guy anyone could ever have. Mr. Little was home alone and had been talking with Mike Moore about a television issue for a while. Mike realized that the issue was not something that required his intervention, but after visiting with Mr. Little and noting how kind he was compelled to do more. Mike wanted to help this nice man with his issue, and he knew that if he took some extra time, he could help him resolve the problem. Mike's kindness and desire to go above and beyond as a cable technician and as a human being is why Mr. Little is here tonight. If Mike had chosen to leave without spending extra time with this kind customer, no one would have been home to intervene when Mr. Little needed help. After obtaining equipment from his work truck, Mike returned to find Mr. Little unresponsive, but breathing with a weak pulse. Mike, having worked for a few years with Cabarrus County EMS as a paramedic, recognized the need for immediate life-saving intervention and called 911. You don't have to do CPR to be a hero. Mike's kindness and generosity placed him where he was needed, and that made all the difference.
While they're coming up, I know Scott mentioned it in the story, but Mike used to work with us as a paramedic, and his wife Melody is a nurse in the ER, and we've known both of them for a really long time, so this is truly a family affair here, taking care of you, Mr. Little. Do you have anything you'd like to share this evening? It's okay if you don't.
Well, first of all, I'm happy to be here. And had it not been for Mike, I wouldn't be here. So he is definitely my hero.
I'm presenting Mike with one of our challenge coins, and as he sits down, Scott's going to explain the history of the challenge coin. There's a picture of it on the slide, but each one of our bystanders tonight who was involved in providing a life-saving intervention will be recognized with the challenge coin.
The practice of carrying a coin designed specifically for a unit was popular with the Air Force and Army Special Forces. An individual would carry the coin at all times and present it to prove affiliation with the organization. The use of challenge coins established standards for achievements, commitments, pride, projects, and unity. This year at Hearts and Heroes, we wanted to share the Cabarrus County EMS Challenge coin with those who provided bystander CPR and life-saving interventions. As Justin stated, each bystander involved in the care of a survivor will receive a challenge coin tonight. Thank you to all the bystanders who assisted. April the 3rd, Ronald Kreitzer. Jim Ritchie was talking with his neighbor when Mr. Kreitzer had a sudden cardiac arrest and collapse. Mr. Ritchie recognized the need for CPR and began compressions. 911 was called and first responders arrived and continued life-saving interventions for Mr. Kreitzer. He was taken to Atrium Cabarrus where his care was continued and he was ultimately discharged.
So this is the first one that you will hear about a bystander starting CPR, but it will not be the last one tonight. We're going to highlight that as we move through the program tonight. But Mr. Ritchie, obviously knowing what to do and recognizing the symptoms of cardiac arrest certainly made a huge difference. So, this is a big crowd, but I thought I would start. Are you Mr. Ritchie? Yes, sir. All right. Anything you'd like to say tonight? Obviously, you're our first bystander, so other than Mike, we got right in.
It's an honor to do what I've done.
Well, we're glad that you're here. I know that Mr. Kreitzer is definitely glad. And that's you down here, right? So, all right.
I didn't remember anything until I woke up and saw that little guy standing there in front of me. And it was just an amazing feat that I know the business that I used to be in, a lot of people just go to work. These people don't go to work.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for those comments, and we thank you for your support system here.
Jim was walking his dog, and he lives in a cul-de-sac. Mr. Kreitzer lives in a cul-de-sac. Jim lives on the corner of the street. He walked by, and Mr. Kreitzer was mowing. They stopped and talked. Feel free to correct me if I don't get any details right. But the ditch in the yard, right at the roadway, was too wet to get on with the right mower. Correct. So Mr. Kreitzer mentioned, he said, well, I'm going to go get my push mower and come back and finish mowing the ditch. So Jim walked his dog onto the cul-de-sac, turned around, come back up, and was it before you got back up? Mr. Kreitzer had his name.
We had a few good jokes, and he fell. He's just standing there.
Any of you gentlemen that know Jim and Mr. Kreitzer, they're a lot like myself. They're talkers, so the fact that they've talked twice this day don't let that be. But what I'm getting at, it was very ironic. I look at it in many ways as it happened for a very much reason. But when Jim come back by and had a few words with Mr. Kreitzer when the event happened. So as described before, this is our challenge coin. The bystanders in here could include you. If y'all want to start, if y'all want to do your job, the first responders and us and the hospital truthfully don't have much to work with. So these are the guys that make things happen. So thank you.
June the 22nd, Mr. Leon Clark. Mr. Clark was driving with his wife when he began to slow down and was not responding or able to control the car. Mrs. Clark was able to steer the car on the side of the road and keep themselves and others safe, and then call 911. With the direction of telecommunicators, Mrs. Clark attempted CPR on her husband, but was unable to get him out of the car to perform effective compressions. Roderick and Zeke Aker noticed a car on the side of the road and pulled over to see if they can help. They were able to position Mr. Clark so they could effectively perform CPR. Deputies arrived and were able to take over for them. First responders and EMS arrived, continued CPR and advanced life support, and transported him to Atrium Cabarrus, where his care was continued. Mr. Clark and his wife Sabrina and Mr. or Mrs. Aker are here with us tonight.
We'll start with you, Mr. Clark. Do you have anything to say? And again, if you don't, it's fine.
I'd just like to say, first of all, thank you guys. And mostly thank my wife. Because if she wouldn't do what she did, ain't no telling what happened. And I just want to thank all of you for listening.
Thank you very much for being here with us tonight. And thank you to everybody.
July the 30th, Mr. Steve Purser. Another amazing story involving a neighbor. Mr. Purser and his neighbor, A.B. Riedling. Mr. Purser's wife discovered that he was lying in the front yard and not responding. She ran over to the house of her neighbor, who works for Atrium Cabarrus as a nurse anesthetist. And I'm sure I said that wrong. Sorry. Practiced like 19 times. Amy's son called 911 from their home, and Amy went to assess her neighbor. She realized he had no pulse and began performing CPR until first responders and EMS arrived. Mr. Purser was transported to Atrium Cabarrus, and his care was continued there until he was discharged home. Mr. Purser and his wife and A.B. Riedling are here with us tonight.
You keep saying the hospital staff involved in their care, and I don't want to gloss over the fact that that is a phenomenal amount of people. You can imagine for a stay in the hospital sometimes after cardiac arrest, even when you go upstairs on the floor. There are a lot of faces here from the ED. We do have some from upstairs, but it's very hard to track down exactly who all took care of the patient in the hospital, from the staff who come in and help change sheets to the folks who take care of you medically. So, but we don't want to miss the fact that we are very appreciative that the folks from the ED are here tonight for sure. So I'm going to start. Where's my survivor? All these people right here. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Yes, sir. I think a lot of people don't realize what y'all do for the county. If it wasn't for Wallace and Amy, I wouldn't be here. I laid down 2 1/2 to 2 days. She woke up.
Well, we're glad you woke up. Do you have anything to add? Because normally you're in the walls of the hospital providing care. You have to spring into action. So, Amy, you're like, why? That would be you, or I have to say her.
I was home. We're never home together, so it's amazing that we got this here first.
Well, we're glad you were there, and thank you for doing what you did before we got there. I'm going to go ahead and hand you your challenge while we're standing here.
August the 17th, Mr. Tommy Lunsford. After working in the yard, Tommy Lunsford came inside and told his wife he was not feeling well. She checked his blood pressure and found that it was elevated. Mr. Lunsford then became unresponsive. His wife called 911. Cabarrus County telecommunicator Jason Udy stayed on the line with Mrs. Lunsford to keep her calm and give her instructions until first responders arrived. Mr. Lunsford experienced a cardiac arrest, was resuscitated by first responders and EMS, and transported to Atrium Cabarrus, where his care was continued. Mr. Lunsford and his wife are here with us tonight.
Mr. Lunsford and I had a deal that I would not stick a microphone in his face, but he is very grateful and glad to be here. I got to chat with him. Actually, his wife called me today. So we had the best chat on the phone. So we're glad y'all made it. And Scott's getting the speaker.
God, I was on this call.
Anybody from the ED want to give a shout out? You guys are down there. So, did you change your mind? You're not going to throw me under the bus? Okay. Okay, you say everything you want to.
And I'd just like to thank these people that actually saved my life on the here tonight. It wasn't for them. And I'd like to thank my wife for postponing her trip to Food Line a little bit.
You go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay, there was a little difference in the events that happened that day because he actually felt good that whole day. he had been out that morning working in the yard. I was sick, and he went to get some medicine for me, came back, went downstairs, wrote a check, came back up, said, I think I'll check my blood pressure because just to see if I'm still alive. I wasn't really paying him any attention. He sat down, he said, it's 176. It was 170 something over 67 something. He said, is that good? And I said, that's terrible. But I turned back over. He was in a recliner, I was in the other one. And I started hearing these strange noises, and I thought he was going to imitate me snoring. And then I heard this gurgling sound, and I thought, that is not normal. So I looked over there, and then I realized, oh my Lord, we are in trouble. He's either having a stroke, some kind of seizure, or whatever. And then from that, I remember calling 911, and they responded so fast. We have a daughter who's a nurse, we have a son who's a fireman. I've heard all the stories, but until you walk in those shoes as the recipient of all of that action, you can never, ever appreciate just how wonderful it is. And all the guys that came in, firefighters and the EMTs, were just so considerate, not only of my husband and treating him, but also of us and our house. Even asking, do you mind who your furniture? And I said, do whatever you have to. So I want to thank all of them that were there and everything because they did a dynamite job.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that story. And it was
November the 4th, Miss Cynthia West. Miss Cynthia West, a retired nurse, would like to extend her sincerest thanks to everyone who was involved in her care. She sent the following email. Unfortunately, I will not be able to attend as I will be out of town for a family wedding. I really wish I could be there to celebrate and meet all of the amazing people that were involved in my survival. My cardiac arrest on November the 4th was something that came without warning as I was working out that morning at the gym. I have considered myself blessed that those who participated in my resuscitation were all there that day. I believe in fate and divine intervention. I'm here today because Jamie, Lindsay, Gina, and Audrey were also at Octane Fitness at 9 o'clock on Monday, November the 4th. Thank you does not even begin to express my gratitude for what these heroes gave me, a second chance to live. I'm doing really well and back in my routine, even exercising. My sister, Carolyn Lomax, is attending the event in my absence. Carolyn and the individuals that assisted Cynthia in her time of need are here tonight.
So this one was a little bit unique because Jonathan works with us, and his wife Lindsay was at the gym, and she works at the hospital as well. Used to be, she's a recovering ER nurse, I think we would call her, but on the IV team now, and we depend on those folks as well. But either one of you have anything? And actually, do you want to speak on behalf? We'll start with you, and then we'll go to Jonathan and Lindsay. So you're her sister, right? Okay, because I messed up already.
Right, the city is in St. Thomas, where it's sunny today. And we were all working out at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, and just so thankful that the people that were there, Lindsay was there, and that she was revived and that she's, alive today. So we're very thankful that people were there to help.
Thank you very much. We're glad we were able to be there for sure. Back before I got fat, I used to work out at the same CrossFit gym that Jamie at the time was CrossFit Unite, and I remember at one point doing a CPR class in that facility. They bought an AED. Jeff Sapolsky at the time was running it, Hunter Huss, all that group of folks, and we did a CPR class. And folks that are committed to learning CPR in all sorts of places. You think, well, I'm at the gym and I'm healthy, but you never know. And it's the things like that made a difference here. Obviously, all the way down to the folks in the ER and Jonathan and Lindsay. Anything you want to add? I know you wiped that one off.
Yeah, I guess I'll talk forward. So all of you have the brochure on the way in. At the very top of it is the chain of survival. And if you look at that chain of survival, the very last step of that is transport to the emergency facility. Lindsay and Jamie and everybody else that was involved in Cynthia's care that morning just epitomized that. The early defibrillation, there was an AED handy. It had just been serviced, I think, like 10 days prior, and they put a new set of pads in it, a fresh battery, and that was another godsend. It was just time. It was perfect. Personally, it was a little bit stressful for me. I knew my wife was at the gym, and there were 6 of them there. They weren't really good odds. So I was really nervous on the way. I got there relatively quickly. But by the time I got there, I saw on the computer the age of the patient. I was a little more relieved. By the time I got there and walked in, Cynthia was already awake and talking. We literally did nothing but transport her to the ER. All the praise and thanks and all the rescue efforts were from Lindsay and Jenna and Audrey and Jamie. So they deserve every bit of the credit.
Thank you for sharing that. Am I the only one that's jealous she's in the Caribbean because it's snowing outside?
December the 8th, Mr. Amanda Dewar. Amanda was home with her family when she appeared to be having a seizure. Her boyfriend Desmond Mackin, called 911 for help. With the assistance of telecommunicator Carly Suggs, Desmond was able to assess her. Amanda suddenly stopped breathing, and he was instructed to start hands-only CPR. Carly continued to support him over the phone until first responders arrived and provided further care for Amanda. She was transported to the Atrium Cabarrus and later discharged. Unfortunately, Ms. Dewar had to leave due to the weather, but at this time we would like to ask the first responders and hospital staff involved in her care to please come forward and be recognized. December 16th, Ms. Lisa Kennedy was working at Chick-fil-A and was not feeling well. She opted to push through and finish her shift. Concord police officer Christian Coe stopped by Chick-fil-A near the end of his shift to have breakfast and visit with his friend Lisa. He noticed Lisa was pale and sweaty. She was also not responding to him the way she normally would. He asked for someone to get her some water and felt her pulse. He noted it was faint and used his radio to request fire and EMS assistance. After first responders arrived and placed Lisa on the stretcher to take her to the ambulance, she went into cardiac arrest. CPR and advanced life support were initiated by firefighters and paramedics on scene. Lisa was then taken to Atrium Cabarrus, where treatment was continued, and she was later discharged. This event demonstrates how a law enforcement officer went above and beyond his call of duty. Lisa and her husband, and Officer Coe, are with us here tonight.
I just want to build off what Scott said. This, obviously, we depend on every element of public safety, and we are so thankful to have our law enforcement officers. Oftentimes they get there before we do. You've seen a couple tonight where they got there and started CPR or provided care. They carry tourniquets, and they train, and we're very thankful to have that link in the chain of survival as well. So, do you have anything you'd like to say? Start? Nope, that's just fine. I'm just like Christian holds you up. You need to say something?
This was, we were talking about fate earlier and God and things like that. This was the end of my Chick-fil-A fast that I normally have every year. And I see my cholesterol break from this is my first time actually back at Chick-fil-A in probably a couple of months. And she was sitting right there, not being her normal self. And it looked bad, and it's something I won't ever forget the rest of my life. So.
Thanks to Cabarrus County EMS and all the survivors that have joined us up front tonight. We'll have a framed picture of them and their heroes sent to them in the next few weeks. Unfortunately, not all of our survivors can be here with us this evening. However, we still want to recognize their heroes. Please give one more round of applause to those who are involved in saving lives. If you were involved in the care of any of the survivors that were not present tonight, at this time we would ask that you please step forward for a group photo.
Thank you all again for joining us tonight. I want to close with just a few final remarks. Once again, thank you to Atrium Health for their sponsorship of this event tonight. The food you had out there would not have been possible without them. They have sponsored us every year with this event. For many years we had it at the hospital. We moved out for different reasons and we're here now, but thank you so much to them for their continued support. If there is anybody here from Atrium, please stand up just to be recognized. One more round of applause for everybody from the hospital. All of you. Once again, thank you to the City of Kannapolis for letting us hosting this event at this beautiful facility, and thank you to Zoll Medical once again for providing our keynote as well as your partnership with us and life-saving equipment. We thank you so much for that. Several times tonight, and I said this at the beginning, you heard who started CPR, and it was a bystander, almost every time to some degree. So if you want to know CPR and learn to do the steps of CPR, we want to teach you, and we have ways to do that. There is some information at the tables out in the lobby. If you're on social media, our Facebook page has every single CPR class that we're offering the rest of this year. We do those during the night, and you see the dates here from 6:30 to 9:30. And it is a central location at the Sheriff's Office in downtown Concord. We would love to fill those classes up. The more the better. And we need you out there because we can't do what we do unless that chain is started to begin with. So definitely join us if you could for a CPR class, and we'll be glad to give you more information about that if you need it. So one more set of folks to thank. The Hearts and Heroes Planning Committee. We have folks from law enforcement, from the Sheriff's Office who sit on that committee. I know Gilmore's back there to plan this event tonight. If I didn't call just a couple out by name, I would be remiss in doing that. Ann Coffey is one of our community paramedics. And if you are a survivor in the room or family, you have probably talked to Ann in planning this event. Potentially, you even saw her with a community paramedic visit after your event. Where is Ann? There she is. Stand up. Thank you, because she actually reaches out and calls all these people and does a lot to make this event possible. Right beside her is Captain Kara Clark. She honestly is the wheels on this thing tonight. If it weren't for her, none of us would know what we're doing, and we appreciate her as well. And we also have other folks in the room, and if I start naming people, I'm going to miss them. But thank you all to everybody who's been here planning this event over the past year and over the past couple nights. We were very nervous about the weather, but thank you for coming and definitely able to attend tonight, and it meant a lot to us. Feel free to hang out. We do want you to be safe getting home. I have no idea what the roads are doing. There's probably somebody in here who's better equipped to speak on that than me, but just drive safely and get home safe tonight. And thank you so much for joining us. But hang out as long as you want to. We'll be here for y'all to socialize. Thank you all for coming.